Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go. What's happening, everybody? My name is Nicolaou. I'm back with another podcast episode. I've got a special guest today, all the way from America via Skype, successful entrepreneur, Chris Graffagnino, in the chair with a barber. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I know that you're a busy man. You've got a lot of stuff going on, yeah?
Yes, sir. I have my full-time global risk management company that I started 4 years ago. And
Right.
Obviously, with the events that are ongoing today in the world with the pandemic, I have a crisis support function of that company that we've been working around the clock supporting our clients worldwide.
So did you not, at what point did you figure that you were going to have to start doing all these things? Because you had, I saw the 3D printer and you're doing the visors and those kind of things, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm doing that actually to donate. That's in the little free time that I have. So I live in New Jersey, where we've been on lockdown for 70 days, and I have two small kids. My wife, we're all going crazy. So I bought a few 3D printers. It started with my son, so he can print out his own toys because all the toy stores are closed.
Right.
And then I found somebody that I've networked with on social media that's been making face shields and donating them to healthcare providers in New York City. Right. So I picked up a 3D printer, and I've been making my own items that I've been donating as well to my community, fire departments, police departments, medical facilities, family, friends. A couple of different things I've been making, and it's been going well. It allows me to give back to the community. Me and my wife donated a ton of food. Actually, everybody's been donating so much food that there's time slots. So we said, instead of giving food, let's do something else that can help them. They can actually utilize. As far as business, I do work in China. I have an intelligence component to my company as well. We've been eyeing this pandemic since November of 2019. Wow. We've been providing support in Asia since December of 2019, and then obviously we saw it and watched it spread throughout Europe and the United States.
What's the core purpose of the business? What is it that you actually do?
Yep. So the core purpose in 2016, I co-founded a company we call Guardian Arc International, and it's global security and logistics. It all falls under risk management. So it's the identification of risk, prevention of risk, and then response to risk, which would be in the form of a crisis.
So this is the type of risk that we're talking about with like things that are going on now, yeah?
Correct. So we help business operations maintain continuity of work, and we provide safe travel for their employees that have to travel abroad for work or operate internationally.
What is like the most common thing that you deal with?
Mostly secure transportation and risk reports. So let's say you're traveling to Libya to work on an oil platform for several weeks. As a traveler, we'll provide you with a risk assessment in written electronic or digital report format. So you and your employer and their health and safety team or internal security team can identify all the risks associated with you traveling and working at that location for a set period of time. Right. In addition to that, then we do the physical risk prevention of close protection, secure transportation, where we actually have assets locally that will provide support on the ground of that employee or traveler. And then on the crisis side, we do journey management or travel monitoring. So while employees, we may not be physically with them, we will remotely monitor current events or different conditions that are happening on the ground around their itinerary. And then we have a hotline number. If there is an emergency that's affecting that traveler, they can call in and we would respond physically with security or medical boots on the ground to put hands on them and get them to safety, whether that be locally or take them out of the country.
So you've got all the grounds covered?
Yes.
So what I do know is that before you were into this, you were in the forces, yeah?
Yes. So I was actually in New York City law enforcement locally. I was a law enforcement officer and U.S. Army.
Right.
And the U.S. Army is kind of where I had my global experience in risk management, if you will. I was in combat operations in Afghanistan, and taking the work there. I was an infantryman, but taking that work and looking at it from a risk management perspective, we would go out and do reconnaissance to identify risk on the battlefield. Then we would provide operational plans to reduce risk or eliminate the risk on the battlefield,
Right.
whether that be in combat operations of neutralizing a target through physical fighting force, or navigating around choke points or certain danger areas when maneuvering or moving as a team. And then I also networked with a lot of different task forces that were operational in Afghanistan in 2010 when I was there. I was injured in combat, and when I returned home to America, I could not serve in law enforcement anymore due to injuries that I had sustained to my head. And I left law enforcement behind and actually started working in the private sector on Wall Street for internal corporate security for a big insurance company on Wall Street. And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so all of what you do now, you kind of picked up over the years through the law enforcement and the armed forces.
Yes. So taking everything that I've done and looking at risk management as the overarching similarity or commonality between each job function that I've had, I've taken that and applied it to Wall Street, which is where I developed my business acumen and business development mentality, and just applied it in the private sector, developed new business for Wall Street. And then 2016, I had enough success working for others that I went out on my own and with a partner. And 4 years later, we're globally and over 100 countries. We provide support anywhere in the world. We do evacuation services, repatriation, secure transportation, again, all under the risk management. We do intellectual property protection, where we move prototype equipment under a chain of custody management program. So it's been, logistics, moving, supply chain security, moving things from point A to point B. We've done operations during in kind of war zone scenarios, like in Haiti. We've done work where we've identified the need at that time, and the need was there were so many supplies coming into the country, and they didn't have the infrastructure to disperse them throughout the country. So we went down there and we put a logistics plan in place to get all the humanitarian aid out of the capital where it was not needed and into the remote areas and villages and towns throughout the country. So a big piece of this business is solutions, right? Forecasting a problem, identifying a solution, and then responding to it ahead of everybody else. So we're the first in.
Where are people finding you? As when you started your business off, was it a case of having to heavily advertise, or did you have connections already in place?
No, so to this day, we have spent like no money on marketing. There's no advertising. We do a lot of discretionary work. It's all word of mouth. There's a few big entrepreneurs that you might have heard the saying, your network is your net worth. And in this instance, it's 100% true. Everything has been attending meetings, doing a job for a client, and then that client referring us to somebody else when another client says, hey, who are you guys using in this space? Or how are you doing that? And that's been instrumental for us in word of mouth. And again, in certain cases, we're protecting lives. So, advertising doesn't do that justice. It's usually off of recommendations.
Right. Awesome. When you were getting into work originally, like with the law enforcement and the forces, did you ever expect that you'd be in this situation where you're your own boss and you've got a successful business?
No, so it's funny, you know. I'm actually in the process of writing a book now. So my entire life, I wanted to be a police officer in New York. I grew up in Staten Island, New York, and in that area of Staten Island. So Staten Island's one of the 5 boroughs of New York City,
Right.
and in that borough has the highest concentration of New York City employees and union workers.
Okay.
So growing up, everybody was a firefighter, a police officer, a sanitation worker. Believe it or not, New York City sanitation workers make 6 figures. I mean, it's insane the amount of money that they can make. And, you know, that's what was sold to me, you know, the benefits of working for the city, the pension, unlimited sick leave as being a police officer or a sanitation worker. And so growing up, it was union, union, union. I'm one of 5 siblings. And, you know, all of us came up with that mentality, you know, middle class of, you know, this is where you live. Every single house is pretty much the same. Nobody does really much better than anybody else. And it's very status quo. And I had a problem with authority and a big oppositional defiance, right? To do things that I was told not to do, but only do them because I was told not to do them or I couldn't do something. And my father was a disciplinarian, and it started us young working. I was 13. My brother Michael was 10, and we started our own landscaping business on a random Saturday that my father said, "You guys are starting your own business, and you're going to start cutting our own grass." And that's how we started. And all those years, I was just doing it to become a cop. I got into law enforcement, wanted to serve my country, you know, because I lived through 9/11. And I did that. And again, military is big on discipline and towing the line and taking orders and following orders. And all of this time, I said, you know, how am I listening to you? I'm much better at your own job than you are. But I did it. And then even then, I went to the private sector. And they gave me a little bit of creative control. It was a big, there was a lot of military veterans. That's how I got recruited into this program. And in corporate security, there's a lot of veterans and law enforcement officers, former law enforcement. And I got into that. And then I just started seeing different opportunities to grow and actually create business. And at the time, I had the creative control to do so. They gave me budgets. I left New York with the same company, moved down to Houston, Texas to develop new business for them. I traveled across the world doing this. And once they took the creative control from me and I started having managers that, you know, it became very political and, you know, kind of turned into, you know, like a military thing again, where now you do what you're told and there is no independent decision making. That's when I lost interest and said, you know what, it's about time. I could do this shit better than anybody else. And, you know, and again, I was laughed at. You know, I went up against, it was a multi-billion-dollar industry, probably $1 trillion industry, the global security or private security world. And, you know, most people in that space are retired law enforcement. They were high achievers and, you know, federal agents that have 20, 30 years in security and law enforcement and then start their own companies. And, you know, when I went into this, I was 31 when I started my business too. And I didn't have 20 or 30 years in security, but I had enough and I had the know-how to build a business and do it better than my competitors. And you know, the difference right now is that they've been around a lot longer than me. I'm 4 years in the game on my own. We already grew to an 8-figure company. Within those 4 years, or 3.5. Well, May will be 4 years officially. And so we hit the 8-figure mark, and you know, annually. And again, you know, if I had been around 30 years, you know, we'd be much bigger, I believe. But everything kind of happened for a reason. So, but we spent essentially no marketing on that. Any of the marketing is for my personal brand, which is to now help mentor entrepreneurs or businesses in whatever stage that they're in, to give them the tools and the motivation to succeed, to build their own brand.
So what I find interesting is your story parallels a lot of business owners where it gets to a point where, and me as well, you get so fed up of being told what to do.
That's right.
that you, so were you always looking for more breathing space? Was it always a case of
Yes.
just
Yes.
let me do me, and then it
Yes.
got to a point where you got so far and then they wouldn't give you any more room?
That's right. Yeah. So, and they wouldn't give me more room because corporate America works on egos and politics, right? All of these little business units are like the good old boys club. Somebody gets into a position and starts hiring friends. They might not be qualified for a position, but there's open positions. You know, you're a billion-dollar company. You just hire random people that you don't need, and you surround yourself with like your friends, and it becomes like a country club. And what happens is you come up with a good idea, and either you have a boss that says, well, I didn't come up with that idea, so it sucks, and I'm not going to give it a second. Or you have a boss that's a complete idiot and doesn't see what you see.
Right.
And that kind of, that causes a rift. And, you know, again, you're a billion-dollar company, so you don't really need to produce results, or you're just getting paid six figures to sit around and do nothing in a lot of cases. So that was kind of the headbutting that I got into.
So Chris, why did you feel like you could do what you do so well?
So when I had this, again, bouncing around from different jobs and different perspectives. And then when I went to Wall Street, I started in an entry-level position before a division was created. And I took part of that creation and climbed every rung of the ladder. And when other new positions became available, I was the only one in the entire company of 60-something thousand people that were qualified for those positions, because I had the perspective of every single level. You know, when you're a boss and you're just, you know, you enter at a certain level and then it's being created below, you don't see the day-to-day. You're not in the day-to-day grind. But now you're managing this space. You don't know exactly or have the firsthand knowledge and experience of what it is to grind in that space, because you've never done it. You're fortunate enough to just start at the top and it be created below. So that's how I kind of knew, you know, what I saw. Now, granted, I didn't have the macro perspective that my bosses had, because I was living in my space. But I had enough to connect the dots, and eventually what happened was there were layers put in between me as the good old boy crew started getting hired, and people in corporate America hire fancy resumes or their friends.
Right.
And what happens is now you have mid-level managers that, you know, further removed me from the top, and my ideas never made it anywhere. But yet the business, you know, wasn't doing or performing to its capacity. You know, it would be like Ferrari not selling Ferrari. You know, the name sells itself. You know, but if you put all these like kinks in the chain of getting that brand out to the customer in front of the right people to purchase it, it's never going to go anywhere. And that's what I saw happening. And eventually, I just, you know, I became fed up. I came back home. I was an executive. Actually, I was still an executive for a Wall Street company, another different company, and this is where I was dealing with, at the level that I was at. I was the head of a crisis management component for a financial company, and my job there was to ensure that business could continue during different types of events worldwide, whether it be natural disasters or man-made scenarios. And at that level, I was mostly dealing with politics, and you know, it was just it was time to go. But I sucked it up, because I started building my company on the side, and you know, for the first year, I didn't take a penny out of the business. We just let it sit in the business, and while I lived off of my salary, you know, working for a company until I left, and then you know, we started building Guardian Arc International, my risk management company. And that's all. I lay that out actually in my, I have a curriculum in production for my mentorship program.
Right.
And it shows you how to like build and actually raise your own capital without investors, without leveraging yourself to creditors, all of that.
Was there big stumbling blocks for you when you started the business?
Absolutely. So
tell us about that.
Yeah, the big stumbling block is, who the hell is Guardian Arc International, right?
Right.
When you're one of the largest insurance companies in the world, and I'm working for them, the name, again, like Ferrari, sells itself. You don't need salespeople, you need contract signers, because the brand sells itself. Everybody knows a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So when you think, just because I had relationships with certain clients, a lot of people think, and salespeople will threaten you all the time and say, well, if I leave, I'm taking my book of business with you. Yeah, that's not entirely accurate, because, you're working for $1 billion company, multi-billion dollar company. The client is got so much time vested in that company. When you leave, like, yeah, the relationship may still remain, but they're not going to automatically switch business.
Right.
So
yeah.
the biggest thing was not being able to market, right? You don't see commercials for this stuff. It's very discreet. And we didn't have a budget to market, and we didn't have any type of brand recognition. So
Okay.
how do you launch this program? And we struggled, for the first year. But again, it's about being ready to seize opportunity and risk, high stakes to make it work. And we did that. And we took our last bit of money and invested it and brought it with us. Actually, I deployed to the Caribbean after Hurricane Matthew, I believe it was, hit in 2017 in the summer, and
Right.
just destroyed the Caribbean. And we were contracted to conduct evacuations of multinationals that were stranded on various islands throughout the Caribbean. And we put it together. We ended up getting boats, local boats from tour agencies, tour groups out of the Caribbean, and we conducted one of the largest private maritime evacuations in modern history. Wow. And that put us on the map within the industry, and things just kept rolling on from there. And we invested the money wisely in our own company and didn't spend it all. And that's kind of the motto going forward. The mindset is, weather these storms. I mean, right now, a lot of business owners are having problems with not just small businesses, but large businesses, $20 billion companies that are almost bankrupt. It's been 1 month. Yeah. If you're worth $20 billion and have one bad month and can't survive, that is a huge problem. You're overspending. And
so is that what you feel the problem is? It's a case of overspending.
I think so. And again, looking at it on a more micro level, there's business owners in my community that maybe have a series of restaurants and different real estate projects, and they're driving around in Rolls Royces and $400,000 or $500,000 cars. And now all of a sudden, one bad month, and they're putting up, struggling signs like they can't make it. Well, should you have been driving around in that Rolls Royce? So a lot of it is spending. Again, a lot of small business owners go paycheck to paycheck. As the money comes in, maybe they, if they earn $10,000 in a month, they withdraw $10,000 a month and stick it in their pocket, and that's what they live off of. Yeah. And when I built my company, it was, if we made $10,000 in a month, 8,000 of it stayed in the business, 2,000 came out, and that's what I lived off of. And then every year it grew as the business grew. And even if I didn't have a crisis component to this company, we didn't lay off anybody during this entire period. We didn't plan on it. We had plenty of, the money that we're spending this year is off of the money we earned last year. So we're a year ahead of the game. If business shut down for a year, we would be able to
still manage.
Obviously we would be impacted. We might have to make employee layoff decisions and furloughs, but we would be able to survive. Right. And so a lot of businesses can't do that. But in the curriculum I'm creating, it scaling is a big thing, right? If you want to open up a restaurant, don't buy a $2 million building. Don't take out a $2 million loan and buy a building. Start with a small shop, rent the space, and then as you grow and save money, then you expand. Yeah.
I'd say a lot of people, when it comes to business, seems to bite off more than they can chew.
Right.
And what happens is they think, well, if I get a big business, a big shop, a big building to operate in, then
Right.
I can grow into that. But they don't look at the point of you have to be able to afford to maintain it first.
That's right. Yeah. You need at least like 6 months of cash on hand to be able to pay your overhead.
Right.
Whatever the overhead is, your building space, your employees. You know, if you look at it this way, and I'll go to the food industry again, if you start small, that you can only seat maybe 30 people, and you're getting 50 people at a time, well, then guess what? There's a line, right? There's a line forming, and it creates a buzz, and it makes people think that, you know, hopefully your food is good and everything, but you know, people like that prestige of not being able to immediately access a place. So it might be marketing for your business, and it also shows now that once you have consistency, you start saving, and then you open up a bigger space or a second location, and now you start to scale and expand your geographic market.
So for me, I've got my barber shop has got 3 chairs in it, 3 barber chairs. I work full time, and then I've got another barber that works half a week. So we're only using 2 chairs for half a week, and then I've always got a 3rd chair free. I've been in business for a year and a half, and I thought, if I can if I can get 3 chairs running consistently through the week, it'll take me a few years. But if I need more, then you can always open another location, you know?
That's right. Yeah. And you get a new kind of demographic and a new customer, a clientele in a new area, and it builds and expands your brand. So in your case, it might be, you know, worth keeping the 3rd chair even when it fills to go to look at a second location.
Right.
And now you can oversee both locations, maybe spend half your week in one space, half your week in the other space. The other thing is to keep the overhead as minimum as possible with hiring. You know, I still do the grunt work. I have assistants now, and we have a chief of staff, head of business, and employees and managers that work under me. But I still get in the grind. I'm still doing a lot of the operations. I still go on job sites for quality control. It keeps me sharp, and it keeps my costs down. You know, I'm not above doing any of the work. You know, that's the other thing too. Literally, when we started, you should be doing every single function until basically the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
And then you absolutely have to hire somebody so you can expand.
Yes.
If you're not expanding, if you're just hiring to maintain, that's a common error that a lot of people face.
Do you feel that ego gets in the way of a lot of people failing?
I think so. It's maybe not necessarily ego, but it could be patience, and patience is a big part of it. A lot of people cannot wait. You know, 2 things. One, paper chasing, right? I never chase the money, chase the passion. The money comes if the passion's there and you achieve what you need to achieve.
Yeah.
I always say, you know, I set out just to make money for my family and provide a living, and then I developed this passion over the years. Thought I could do it better, went out on a mission to do it better. And then now the money, you know, I don't say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how much I want to earn. Now it's, here's the service I want to provide. The money, the revenue coming in is the market's approval that your work is successful, that it's making a difference, and it's being well received by the industry. And that's how the money comes in. Now, but the patience is people saying, oh, I made $10,000 this month. I want to go out and buy that Mercedes, or I want to buy, I'm moving to a bigger place. You know, I was making over $1 million a year, and I was driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee up until this year. This year I got some toys this year, but that's after 3 years of earning personal income of 7 figures.
Right.
So, you know, that is extremely important, not to go out and start, you know, going crazy off the bat after your first check. You know, reinvest. That's a hard discipline to take, a really good month of $10,000, or let's say 10,000 is your average, and then you have a $50,000 month. It's hard for people not to take that and say, you know what, I'm taking the whole thing, rather than pretending it was 10,000 and reinvesting that much more into the business and letting it roll until next year to grow.
I think that this pandemic has been a blessing for a lot of ways for people. I've seen it for me, because you realize what's important and what isn't. And so now when we get back into work and we start making money again, I'm thinking more now to make sure I'm comfortable. Whereas before, when I was making some money, I thought, okay, I can put this to the side and I'll take a little bit of this to play with. But you want to make sure now that you're very comfortable before you start playing with the money, because you're not guaranteed that next month.
Right. And not only that, but like in industries like yourself, like barbers took a huge hit during this, right? But if you think about it, if you build a brand as a barbershop, right, during a pandemic like this, if you were to say, if you were selling like through e-commerce, like hair products, shavers and cutters and stuff like that, you could potentially or still be earning money. Because think about now, if you were selling hair clippers, how many people are out buying hair clippers to cut their own hair? Yeah. So that's one perspective to look at it, and just not look at it to say, well, I'm doing good, with the barber chairs and I'm comfortable. And, even if you're not looking to, a lot of people are comfortable not make, they're like, I make 50, 60,000 a year. I'm good. I'm not looking for that big house. I'm not looking for the cars and the jewelry. You don't need that. I'm not looking for it either. I'm looking, but if you want to be comfortable, you should still diversify your business portfolio as much as possible for these times. And this, nobody ever thought that this could happen. I mean, I've planned for this for years based on through catastrophe modeling, because that's what I do. But listen, if I had to sell vacuum cleaners to make money, I would be selling vacuum cleaners right now. That's it, right. So it's about hustling and finding opportunity and capitalizing on it to make money. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. Again, a lot of my business function for my company, which I'm the COO of, so I'm involved in the day-to-day operations. A lot of that is travel-related work, and travel shut down. Yeah. But we were able to, get in use our contacts and in logistics and supply chain, government contacts. We were able to switch what we do. We were able to provide services to, clients that have office buildings that still need to maintain some type of security on the building, and to their personnel that are essential coming to and from work. And we saw that opportunity and started pitching it in advance. So the point that you're making is that you've got so many areas covered that even if one fails somewhere for whatever reason, you've still got other things you've got going on. Right. Yes. And we operate very lean as well, which is also critical. So we don't have that big overhead that we have to keep spending every month. And it's important. A lot of people told me real estate was the best investment. Real estate. Yeah. A lot of people aren't collecting rent right now. That they may never recoup. And the more properties you own, the more rent you're not recouping. So, real estate is not a protected market. That is there's no fail-safe for this. It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I've always been thinking for the last few years, once I start piling some money up, I'm going to start investing in property as well. And when this pandemic hit, again, like you said, I realized that if you've got a lot of places rented out and they can't afford to pay rent, you ain't making money either. Right. Yeah. So, and what do you do? I mean, the government put a stop on it, so you're not evicting anybody. And unless the government is going to reimburse you as a small business, if they consider that a small business that you have all these properties that you own and manage. Maybe you'll recover some of the funds, but there's no guarantee there. And, I'm not saying it's a bad investment. I'm just saying, it's never good to have basically all your eggs in one basket, which if that basket falls, then you're out. So
do you feel like there's certain things you can invest in which are always going to be viable investments?
I mean, so anything that like sweat equity is big for me.
What do you mean by that?
Sweat equity. So any type of job that you can put your own hard work, like your hands, and do it yourself, landscaping, like that kind of stuff. But you have to be kind of flexible. I'm not saying have every single business out there in the world, but anything that can be done. Like, again, like barbershops are great businesses. How you could be more protected for this is now look at an e-commerce platform to sell products digitally, right? Or even if you don't create your own, create a platform to broker those products, right? Something that you don't have to rely on somebody else. That's like what I mean by sweat equity. And so anything that, and again, just being mindful of what's happening in the world. Right. I mean, and keeping an open mind to a lot of people when this stuff was going on in China said, well, that can never happen here.
Yeah.
And yet here we are. But now 2 months ago that you could have had a 2-month lead time into preparing for a shutdown. I was telling family and friends, a week before everything shut down here, like, hey, they're going to shut things down. And they're like, well, this is America. They can't do that. I'm like, the government will shred the Constitution to protect the continuity of itself. And a week later, they shut everything down.
Yeah.
So, you have to have an open mind to these things. Again, not everybody, majority of the people in the world are, they can't do this, right? But there's the other ones, like even if, the information I put out helps one person, make a scenario like this to better themselves, I consider that a success. So, again, nothing is 100% protected, but, there are different solutions or different creative, creative solutions, if you will, that can help you out of this the next time around. Like, just because it ends, let's say they end it now, I'm already looking at next flu season for a potential shutdown again. And how do we get come October?
It's being as best prepared as we can for whatever circumstance, right?
That's right. Yeah. So in this case, I think the internet is, our biggest ally in having a social media and just, e-commerce, digital sales, that kind of stuff is big right now.
Chris, tell me about the mentoring side of things. So what made you want to do that?
So I, a lot of my life was here's what you should do because everybody is doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Just the way, and there was nobody. I never thought about not being a cop, right? Or having a union job because, if you weren't a union worker in my upbringing, like you didn't make it. Like there was no other work. Nothing was secure. And, hey, granted, even union jobs aren't secure. And so when I started, I went to college. And that was another big thing going to college, right? I didn't go to like a big Ivy League school because I didn't want to pay. I didn't want to end up with the debt.
Right.
And I seen that at 17. In the U.S., it's easy to go and have a $200,000 student loan, and you want to be a teacher that makes $40,000 a year. Well, you can get a degree to become a teacher at a community college where you maybe come out with a $40,000, $50,000 debt instead of $200,000 because you wanted to go to the fun school. And and they're a business, right? They have really good marketing, universities. But so I'm the only one. I went into, did all this stuff. When I started working in corporate America, nobody really understood it out of my family and friends. And all my ideas were kind of like, heckled or shot down as, they didn't understand it, or I made it sound so easy everybody could do it or anybody could do it.
Right.
And that was like the common quote I heard was, if it was that easy, you make it sound so easy. If it was that easy, anyone could do it. Well, I made it sound easy because I was talking about it in layman terms. And when you really understand things, people that really know how to do something will speak in simple, will make it sound simple.
Yeah.
They won't go into these complexities. And so I didn't have the support to go out and start my own venture. And, I'm not trying, at this point, I'm not looking to create a small business. I'm looking to create a corporation. And that's what my main company is. But now the mentorship, I'm looking to reach out to those individuals that are like-minded and were experiencing what I experienced, the obstacle and adversity of being different from everybody else, and, having a big mind in a small town. And even though I'm from New York City, it's still where in Staten Island, it's very, very cliquey and very small-minded individuals. Like, a lot of people want to leave and move off of Staten Island, but never do.
Right.
It's like a mental block there, or that they make it seem impossible. And I live in New Jersey, 35, 40 minutes away, and I might as well live on the other side of the country because nobody wants to go over the bridge to come visit because it's New Jersey or move. So I want to reach out to those individuals that are experiencing that. Maybe they have ideas and dreams. They lack the business acumen to get started, right? Or or just the wrong information. Again, they're looking to go get a small business loan or find investors to build this. And while you might have impossible big dreams, because that's what you should always maintain, you have to have that crawling phase, and then set a timeline to get to that impossible area that you're looking to achieve. So the goal of this program is to provide information on how to do that and to motivate individuals and connect them into a network of different collaborators that I'll be working with to potentially do one-on-one mentorship with them, separate from the course, and potentially even be an investor into their business.
Awesome. Do you feel, Chris, that you've got specific habits that make you successful?
I think so. I have ADHD, which is, I don't know if you would call that a habit, but growing up now, a lot of kids, their parents, doctors are like, oh, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, put them on medication. And when I grew up, that didn't exist, right? And now everybody wants to drug their kids because they're wild, they don't listen. And my son is like that. I have a 4-year-old, and he is just like me, and it frustrates the shit out of me because he's me. But I will never stop his creativity, which is essentially what the medication does, because I know how I turned out.
Right.
So, that the habits that I have, I mean, I don't think they're, anything like, you look at these guys like Jeff Bezos, and they put up like, oh, he wakes up every morning at 5 a.m., reads a book. Listen, I wake up early, or whenever I wake up, I work out at least once a day, get some energy, because I do stay up like 20 hours. And that's just because my mind never shuts down. And I'm always keeping tabs on different time zones around the world of different work that's going on.
Right.
And, but I do I would say a big thing that I do is I keep a notepad next to my bed. And even throughout the day, I always have a pad with me, and I'm always writing down ideas.
Okay.
And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with a thought, and I write it down. Right. And then I fall back asleep, and I don't remember it until I look at my pad and say, "Holy crap, let's do this."
Yeah.
So that's a big thing, right? And write down as many thoughts as possible. Distract your mind. I do, activity is important because you do a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs never mention physical fitness. Now, I'm not like a gym guru or anything, but getting a half hour to an hour a day in of lifting weights, sweating is very important in conditioning yourself to work 20-hour days. I mean, I literally, I have no start time to my day and no finish time to my day. So it just, it's just something that being in shape kind of helps, maintain that lifestyle.
I've got a friend who's a poker player, and he travels around the world doing that. And he said that to me. He says that the physical side, keeping healthy, helps him concentrate throughout,
Yes.
13, 14 hours worth of sitting down and playing, which
Right.
I'd never realized before how important it is until I was told that by somebody that does it.
Oh, absolutely. I've had family stay over my house, and literally my alarm at a certain time of night, like when you're ready, like when you're passed out and I'm exhausted, my alarm will go off every 45 minutes if I have a major operation or project going on. That I'll wake up every 45 minutes at night and check all my
Wow.
emails and my messages. And people are like, "How the hell are you going 3 or 4 hours a day for sleep 3 or 4 hours a day that long?" And I'm like, well, physical fitness and keeping active is a big part of that. Again,
Endurance, yeah.
you don't have to be a bodybuilder. I can't even make it through a treadmill session without an idea coming to me where I have to stop and start making phone calls.
Right.
So I make that kind of my habit of when I need thought producing ideas, I'll go for a run, or I'll go now that the gyms are closed, I made a gym in my garage, and I'll hit the weights in there, and then halfway in I'm like, holy crap, okay, let me do this. And it puts things in perspective. Not only is it giving you energy to be able to sustain throughout the day, and people ask you like, oh my God, you're so active, like, how do you do it? I'm like, it's just my personality and years of doing this and being active, in exercise is
you've built that up within you.
Yeah.
What I think about a lot is the fact that success of any sort, in any field, whether it's physical, whether it's business, whatever it is, requires certain specifics that aren't usually physical attributes. They're personal attributes, and it's things like consistency, persistence, focus.
That's right.
What kind of things do you say that are maybe the more important aspects for somebody to have?
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely consistency and determination and focus. Now, focus not so much, but why I say chase the passion. Pick something that you would do for free.
Right.
Because don't look at something that you hate, because the consistency and the time is what is going to get you where you need to go. And if you're just, like for me, for example, like real estate, people are trying to get me into real estate. I've had investment opportunities. I'm like, listen, it doesn't excite me. I don't enjoy it. I don't know anything about it. I can't even pick up a real estate book and read two paragraphs. I'm not getting into it. Again, like I told you, like if like for me, solutions is my space. My background is risk management. So that's kind of the area of expertise that I've built over the years, and that's where and that's what I would do for free. I've done a lot of panel discussions and joined these councils and different things where I've presented all for free because I enjoy it. So, and the first year, if you think about it, like I said, the first year that I was in business, I didn't collect a penny off of my company. So if you don't have a desire for that, you're not going to do it. So essentially I was working a full-time job as an executive, 12 hours in an office and then a few hours at home. And then at 9 p.m. at night, I was working from 9 p.m. till about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. on my business. I'm building it. And then I would get up at 5, 6 a.m. in the morning to start my day at work. You're not going to do that if you don't enjoy it. And then you have to sustain that for as long as it takes. For me, it was a little over a year, about a year and a half. It could be years, like I say, I became an overnight success, but it took me 10 years. So, so you have to, and then the other thing is you have to be prepared for that success or the opportunity to be successful. Because once the floodgates open and now clients are demanding and asking for products, the second you tell them that you can't support them, that could stop everything. So it's that consistency over time and determination.
So there's a few interesting things that you said there. One of them is that the one thing that we have to express is that success is it's a marathon. It's the long game. It's not the
Yes,
sprint. And
that's right.
a lot of people that want to make fast money, they fail because where you say an overnight success that took 10 years, most things that are classed as an overnight success weren't overnight at all. There was so much
Not at
in it
all.
before, and
That's right.
people didn't see
Right.
people don't see you.
No,
They might see the articles that are coming out now that you're on. They might see the
that's right.
McLaren,
Yeah,
all these
yeah,
different things, but they
that's
haven't
right.
seen all the hard work that came in before that.
That's right.
So
Yeah, I know people that, they didn't want to get a job, like they didn't want to work because, or they didn't take any jobs because at the age that they were at, they should have been a manager. And I'm like, well, you've never started working anywhere.
yeah,
You have to start somewhere. And
yeah,
I was an executive. I had a driver. I only flew on a corporate plane, on a private jet. And I literally started a business. I was making six figures working for a company, nice bonuses, and I started my company all over.
yeah,
And here I am as a successful executive in my mind. And what do you have to do? You have to put your ego aside, put your pride aside,
exactly.
and just roll up your sleeves and start over. And to this day, I will still, any single person that reaches out to me, I'll respond to them. I'll jump on as many of these podcasts and
Yeah,
video conferences as possible to get information out there. My whole mentorship, Settled for Success, is completely free. So anybody can download the course curriculum and
wow,
sign up for nothing. Because again, I'm passionate about that. I know what I endured and what I struggled through. And I want to help others because maybe, if their mom tells them that's a dumb idea, maybe that's the rest of their life. And they just, sabotage their future, you
right,
know, uh, whereas they need that constant motivation. For me, my motivation was defying others. The defiance motivated me.
right.
Getting a reaction out of somebody now that I'm looking at back and saying, I told you so.
Yeah,
That's my congratulations. I don't even care anymore. Like the money is to support my family, which they're good.
yeah.
Now it's all for the I told you so, and that's what my accolades comes from that. And a lot of people aren't driven by that, and they might again stop what they're doing or pursuing because they just took bad advice from somebody that told them that they wanted them to be a pharmacist,
I,
or
I,
or something else.
I think a lot of it is being confident in yourself, being headstrong, because what I've found, and me only having a small business and a podcast, and you'll always get, even subconsciously, you'll always get a lot of comments or a lot of maybe advice or whatever it might be, that if I'm not centered and strong enough within myself, things are going to throw me off.
Absolutely. People do not like. Everybody wants you to succeed. They just don't want you to do better than them. Once you
Yes.
start doing better than them, they become salty, and then you get all the, but why are you doing that? One of
Yeah.
the comments that I got is, where are you going to keep your, when I bought the McLaren, where are you going to keep it? In my garage? Like what? Like
What
what?
does it
Is
matter?
that
Yeah.
is that the only ridicule that the
Yeah. Yeah.
critique that I got for buying a supercar? I'm like, I'll take it. But people, you have to live for yourself. Opinions are always there. It's how you kind of muster through them. Some opinions I value,
Right.
but you have to know your audience and know where you're taking opinions from. Would I take financial advice from somebody that's been bankrupt 10 times and owes money and is in all this debt?
Yeah. Of
No, I wouldn't. Right. So
course.
why would I take advice on building a business from somebody that has a boss and works for somebody and has
Right.
never
For
even
sure.
took the risk to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So again, you have to, some advice you can value. It just depends on what you do with it, on how you move. Like my wife is a great advice giver to me. She's a good mentor for me. She's a good second opinion. I don't always take her advice. Thankfully, I
But
don't
you
always get in
respect
trouble.
it.
but I respect it, right? And occasionally, even if I don't take her advice, it's because her advice drove me in a different direction.
Right.
But I still valued it, and it's important to do that. That you're not above any opinions. You also want to surround yourself with people that are better than you. So you're always kind of playing that catch-up game to everybody else, and sucking in as much knowledge from others as you can. Right. The hardship, that's what you want to hear about. You don't want to hear about, I get stopped on the street. Oh, how did you buy that car? Read my book, or it's going to take. I could talk to you for hours on how I got it. On the hard work. If you're not willing to put in that in that work, then
yeah, the conversation's over.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the stuff that nobody wants to see. They see that swan floating on the top, nice and calm and elegant, right? But they don't see it's pedaling its ass off underneath the water, right? That's what it takes to keep floating along on the top. But they don't want to do that. They just want to float, and it's important. The consistency is important, because even once you make it, you're only as good as your last performance. So you want to constantly keep going forward, keep doing work, never turn anything down unless it's, out of your risk tolerance. But those are really the keys.
Right. So you having young children, what I'm interested to know is, because I've said over the years, as I've learned more about business and what was necessary and what wasn't, I feel like I did all those years of school and pretty much didn't learn that much of value, right? And going into the working world, whether it's being your own boss or it's not, I feel like there's certain things that are necessary to know, and there's certain things that you don't really need. As you've got young children, is there certain things that you will make sure that you teach them? Because if they don't have anything else, but they've got these little bits of knowledge, they can still survive.
Absolutely. So, like for me, I was a good mix of street smart and book smart. I believe formal education is important. I believe it's necessary, and having the opportunity for the best education, right? Like my son's 4 years old. He's in a private school where he started preschool, but it goes from preschool to 8th grade. Okay. And from preschool, they start teaching them a second language.
Right.
And, which to me, I took Spanish later in life for 7 years. When I'm exposed in Latin America, it comes back to me, but I wish I had been fluent in multiple languages. Right. And, so there are opportunities where that education is very important, but street smart and how to survive. Like, when I was in between jobs, how I was washing buses to make money. My father taught me hard work from a young age, landscaping. I was 13 years old, and I spent my weekends in 100-degree summers in New York City cutting grass and having mosquitoes all over me, and that hard work. Now, I have a full-time nanny. My son's in private school. It's hard. I have a security driver. It's hard not to spoil them.
Right.
But we're also trying to teach them. We're trying to keep them grounded as much as possible. They're growing up completely different than I did. Right. Which is what me and my wife want to give them, everything that we didn't have. That's what you want to do for your kids, and give them better than what you ever had. But, he'll still, we're waiting for him to comprehend enough chores, and he helps us vacuum already, and we don't let him talk to the people that work for us in a bad way. And, he gives orders. He tries to give orders to, our driver. And I'm like, nope, he works for daddy. You don't do that. You help him, so that kind of thing. Mommy and daddy worked for this. They're helping us, so we could continue to work, but you're not there yet.
So obviously you're providing as best you can, but at the same time you're still keeping him grounded.
Absolutely.
And make sure that they're very aware that they can't just do what they want and get what they want
That's
out
right.
of it.
Yeah. But yes, absolutely. But to your thing, I do believe college, formal post, university education is important, depending on what you want to do with it.
Right.
I also believe, I became cultured later in life by traveling around the world. Americans get a bad rap for not respecting other cultures and,
Right.
coming into countries and just assuming that they own it. Traveling around the world and dealing with other cultures. I mean, every walk of life and every type of environment has made me more educated and better. I feel I'm better for it because I'm more respectful and understanding of other races, religions, ways of life.
Right.
So, I'm in a fortunate position that I can travel, and I do travel. Actually, I've been going crazy these last 2 months because I'm usually out of the country or traveling 1 to 2 weeks a month. But
Right.
as soon as my kids are old enough where it's not a waste, I want to get there because they would never sit on a plane for that long. But the goal is to get them out of the country, take them and go and spend, kind of a week in Italy and look at the culture, go to the Middle East and look at the culture and everything,
Yeah.
and have them learn all these. And the private school that my son is in does that. They learned during the Chinese New Year. They learned about the culture. They celebrated the Chinese New Year. There's
Right.
not a single Chinese American student in that class, but they still learned about it.
Yeah.
Right? They learned about Martin Luther King, right, and what that meant. So that's where I believe he's getting more of a better value than public school, even though the public school system here where I live is very good, which is why a lot of people move to the neighborhood I live in for the good public schools. But that private school puts him around other kids that are like him, and also puts me and my wife around other families like us that are successful and have certain things that we wouldn't be kind of ridiculed for having if we went to a normal, if we put them in a normal.
Right. But ultimately, it's about being able to adapt to as many things as possible, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And it really depends. Again, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I did, or I thought I did, and then when I got to it, I was like, "This sucks." I'm kind of like my mindset is of a dog chasing a car and constantly chasing a car. But then when you catch it, what do you do with it? He's probably going to be disappointed, the dog, right?
Yeah.
That was like me. I wanted to be law enforcement, got there, and I was like, "This sucks." Wanted to be military, This sucks. Went to the private sector, developed business, loved it. Still in security, developed business, loved it. Then I got to where I could, and I was like, this sucks. Now I went off on my own, and I can basically do whatever I want and keep running that marathon. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not everybody. Not everybody appreciates that.
Of course.
And some people like their 1 week or 2 weeks off of vacation, and they like their holidays and everything else.
Yeah.
But, it's not for everyone.
I think it's about identifying what you're happy with, and then if you're in a situation where you're not that happy, be honest with yourself and try and fix it. Not everybody is built to run businesses. They're not.
No.
And when even though my business is small, I realized how tough it is to run a business. And although I want to do more, and I believe I'm able to do more in future, it isn't. So, some people are only built to handle small businesses. Some people are just built to work for other people. But I think it's definitely worth noting that if people aren't happy with what they're doing, whatever it is, they should go and find, like you said, what you'd be willing to do for free.
Yeah, change is inevitable. It's very important. It's also very hard. I always say there's two things people hate. People hate change, and they hate everything staying the same. So you have to, but constantly evolving and changing is critical. If you lack a certain acumen in a certain area of business. I wasn't a finance person. I don't know how to do financial books. So at the time, when I started a business, I have a really good partner that came from that side of the world and knew how to run it. But then after a while, once you learn it, or you find somebody that can help show you, maybe you have a friend or something. I have family members that are accountants. Hey, can you show me a couple of things? And then, you find that person, you go on the internet. There's free tutorials and everything now all over the internet, right? Or you should reach out to me. I'll never not help anybody that reaches out to me. I always get like these Forex and cryptocurrency things and whatever. I stray away from those. I also, very important, I never, I get a lot of financial advisement calls where they want to take my money and put it in a 401k. And I explain to them, I make more money with having my money than you could ever make with my money in a stock market. So there's, but you find somebody to learn that part of the business when you grow enough. And if you don't want to do it anymore because you need to focus on other things to grow, then you hire somebody to do that piece.
What I found interesting was when I was starting my business, I did business studies at school, but I can't remember anything from it. And my parents have always had their own business, but it's a different ball game when you're going to do it yourself. And there was so many aspects of buying a property and building a business that I had no idea about. And what happens is you just learn the next step as you get there. And now looking back, I don't even know how the hell I managed it, but here I am,
Yeah, we keep me and my partner keep joking. One of our books that we're going to write is going to be called "Somehow All This Shit Worked," because you're literally, as a business owner or entrepreneur, you're literally jumping out of an airplane and building a parachute on the way down. With whatever you jumped out with, and it's that's just how it is. You're learning new things. But again, once you're at a certain level, and there's different, again, going back to that scaling, right? Because controlling your overhead is critical. And I think the curriculum that I'm putting together will outline how to do that, right? Start out with maybe vendoring out the work. So you're not paying for an employee. So it costs you maybe, $100 a month versus $1,000 or $2,000 a month, right?
Right.
And you just vendor the work out. So you're paying it as needed it. And once it becomes a full-time necessity, then you start hiring people once it starts making you money. Right. And that's another critical thing. You don't want to just start, hiring all these people. And, like you wouldn't want to hire a barber for that third chair if nobody's sitting in it.
Exactly.
And most of the time they're sitting around and you just have to pay them. Right. But you could phone a friend and say, hey, tomorrow's going to be real busy. I got like 4 to 6 customers that are overflow. You think you could come in and I'll just pay you per customer.
Right.
How you control your overhead, and it still allows you to bring in that extra business without turning it away. And then now once that becomes a sustainment, now you could say, listen, I need you full time. Can you do it? And then you go on and you add a 4th chair in. Right. And then you do the same thing with the 4th chair and then the 5th chair. And then by the time you look, now you need another store. Right. So that's the concept behind it on how to grow.
I think it's always never to look too far into the future. Just kind of focus on the task at hand, and then you build slowly from there.
That's right.
Chris, when is this book? Because you've got so much advice and so much knowledge. When is this book coming?
So it'll be it's launching in November of this year.
Right.
So the book itself. So my book will be kind of a it's going to be Settled for Success is the name, but it'll be a memoir motivational piece up to my first $1 million earned. And it'll be my life story, but not a boring life story. It'll be basically the parts of my life that you could draw characteristics from that helped me build a business.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I didn't realize it until now, as I'm going with my writing team and stuff, as I'm going over my past and everything. I'm like, wow, I'm connecting the dots of like, wow, this is why. How I became successful. The curriculum, Settled for Success, the mentorship, within the next few weeks. Right. I'll send you the link, but it'll be settle4success.com.
Okay.
And once that launches, again, I'm building the curriculum with an educating team, a writing team that does educational work. Because again, I'm not an educator. Right. I could speak for hours on a topic, but I can't organize it into a format that's universal for everybody to understand. So I hired a team that's doing that for me, and we'll be launching that in the next few weeks. And again, it'll be absolutely free.
Awesome.
You'll be able to pitch your, you'll be able to create a business plan, and myself and a team of collaborators, some in the finance world, some in that manage talent in the music space. We'll review it, and then we'll select a few a year to do a one-on-one mentorship. That
amazing.
For the program specific to building that business.
Wow.
And it can be, the goal of this is to be able to read the material as a handbook at no matter what stage of your business you're in. So whether you're in the idea phase, or concept phase, or a small business that you're looking to fill that third chair, or looking to get a second storefront.
Right.
So that's the audience.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people can take a lot from this, and with what you've got coming, I think they'll be able to take more. Chris, before we wrap up, what advice would you have gave yourself at the age of 18?
At 18, I would say, I would have probably been less influential on others. At 18, I was trying to keep up with the Joneses, So, my advice would have been I had that landscaping business, I would have never given that up. But I should have looked into the future more, I think, at 18, instead of living for the moment and living to try to impress others.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great advice, yeah.
Yeah, because being too influential could be a character flaw as well. And those are your most impressionable years when you're a teenager in your early 20s.
I agree.
Yeah.
What advice would you give people watching now if they're in a state where they kind of they want to shift from where they're at?
There's never the best advice. There's never the right opportunity. You will never be ready to shift. You have to do it. If you wait for the perfect moment, it will never happen. So you have to just take the jump.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the links to what you've got going on.
Absolutely,
and all your socials. I want to say thank you for coming on, because what you've had to say and the things you're bringing to the table are very inspirational for me, and I'm sure for other people that want to get involved. So I appreciate it. Guys, for all of those watching, subscribe to the socials. I'll put all of Chris's links on, and you can catch the podcast on audio platforms, iTunes and Spotify. We're on YouTube as well. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and you'll see us soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.